Welcome to the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul V. Perez, and on this podcast, I work on improving myself while having fun along the way with the hopes of encouraging you to do the same. And I do so by documenting my life and interests. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about changing habits. It's something that if you ever hear my year-end goals for the next year, I always talk about continuing habits, or I talk about new habits that I want to go ahead and implement in my own personal life to just be the person that I want to be. Old habits that I feel that hold me back, and this is of my own doing. I'm not blaming anyone for the creation of these habits. It's all me. Habits, once again, regarding my sex addiction. Habits regarding a better diet and not continuing the habit of sports betting, which started this year, and I came off of it because sports betting is fun. You get that dopamine high when you win a bet, but ultimately it's just a money loser. In my case, I was rolling the money over to the next day and the next day until the money dwindled down to zero, and then to go ahead and put more money in. And also taking the time to research, listen to different sports betting analysts, picking their teams and spending all the time doing that. These three habits are habits that I want to ultimately change, and I have made some headway into changing these habits. The sports betting, I don't think is going to get further than it started now and my cutting it off. But in terms of the sex addiction and my eating habits, this is something that's been with me for years, and I have made progress, but I'm still not at the place that I want to be. When it comes to the sex addiction, which I have discussed in length on this podcast, and I'll leave links in the show notes for this episode if you want to go ahead and check any of that out. I just want to leave porn alone. I'm okay with masturbation. Masturbation's fine, but the masturbating with the porn, it's just not good for me. And why is it not good for me? First, it kills my erection when it comes time to having sex, and I witnessed this firsthand because I was watching so much porn and masturbating to it. It just completely killed my erection when it came to sex. And secondly, it's this hyper arousal that nothing can ever match that. And it's something that I want to wean myself off of. And I have been. My acting out window is within a 10-day period often. And the way I've found this out is, as I mentioned as well in previous podcasts, is I use a lot of different calendars to track different behaviors in the hope of ending these behaviors. And I consider myself a pretty disciplined person. I know that making good habits, it helps with one's confidence. It helps with one's life, health-wise, emotionally, physically. And I've made some very good habits in my life. I know with anything that takes skill, have taken years to build. And I'm still working on some of those habits. Some of the habits that I feel are very helpful for me that I've formed over the years is meditation, yoga on a daily basis, affirmations on a daily basis, exercise on a daily basis, really pushing more of a vegan diet on a daily basis. The more and more I practice these things, the easier that they become. A comparison example that I'll use is I was recently complimented on my dancing, and people tell me, "Oh, you're so smooth when you dance, and it seems so easy for you." But that's been through a lot of repetition. That's been through a lot of practicing. Basically, it just comes down to a lot of repetition and being receptive and open to learning other kinds of dancing and getting out of my own head about being judged because of my dancing and things of this nature. But once again, the key lesson in that is the reps, is the doing it often until it just becomes second nature. And that's what I want when it comes to, like I said, the sex addiction, when it comes to the food. I think I'm going to nip, like I said, the sports betting in the bud, because I just kind of cut it off before it became something that was tougher to cut off because of the repetition that would have had. I was doing that sports betting stuff every single day. When you discover something new and you just kind of go all in, and that's what it was with sports betting. I was spending money and, like I said, researching every day and betting every day. But that's just an example in the opposite direction, where reps every day often go ahead and can make a new habit easier to do. But it also comes with replacing habits, and that's something that I've heard in passing. And I haven't replaced that habit of the sports betting, but it wasn't something that was there before. Like I said, it was fairly new. But what to do to replace the habits with the sex addiction and the habit of, when it comes to food, it's eating foods with saturated fats. And that's another thing that happens every 10 to 14 days. It's a little bit longer than the sex addiction. It's tied to the sex addiction because when one happens, then I lose confidence and then just go into the other. It's kind of like saying to myself, okay, so I'm already here, why not? Which is not good. And when it comes to, like I said, the food, it's saturated fats. It's eating foods that I know are not good for my heart because my cholesterol's jacked up. I have a thyroid issue, which causes my cholesterol levels just to be weird. I'm very slim. I weigh between 30 and 138 pounds, and I still have high cholesterol. If I eat foods high in saturated fats, or even just plain straight up animal foods, meats, dairy, or if I eat foods with high saturated fats, it exacerbates that cholesterol problem. It exacerbates the clogging of my arteries. Foods that are high in saturated fats like nuts, avocado, foods that you would think are healthy, but continuing consumption of it, I don't want to end up living my very physical life that I enjoy leading, whether it be with work or dancing or swimming or doing all the things that I love to do, and then I end up having a heart attack and just healing over and passing on. And I also have a little bit of trauma of that. It's the way my dad passed, where he ended up having several heart issues over the years. And then there was one heart attack in the end that just really messed him up, and he was in the hospital for a while, but he just couldn't come back to the normal place that he was prior to that heart attack, and he ended up passing from complications regarding that. So today I'm going to be reading a few quotes from a few books that I've read recently regarding changing behaviors and changing habits. I just wanted to make one quick note regarding reading books. There was this great video that I saw from Mark Manson where he talked about, I think it was two separate videos, one about speed reading, how easy it can be, and also, secondly, regarding reading books and how maybe we were taught as kids that we have to read a book from cover to cover from school, but he says to go through books the same way you would go through a YouTube video, or the same way you would go through a movie. Let's say a movie that you watch on streaming, or like I said, a YouTube video, or maybe even some audio. Just go ahead and go to the parts that you really are interested in. Highlight those parts and just kind of save the book for some time down the road. Like with this podcast, I like to use these books and the things that I've highlighted for content, for material. And also, I initially brought these books because there was a topic in there that interested me, whether I can use it to go ahead and change my life or just become a little bit smarter on a particular topic, or just something that really fascinated me. That's a great piece of advice when it comes to books. Don't feel like you have to read it cover to cover. Just read the parts that interest you. Go into the chapter listings and just find the topics that interest you and read those chapters. I regret now selling some of my older books because I just would love to build a library. I'm slowly building it too. My own personal library of books and topics that interest me, or I can just kind of dig into them and I can make a video, make a podcast about it, or what have you. Great piece of advice, though, regarding books. The three books I'm going to be talking about, one is Brain Lock by Jeffrey M. Schwartz. Free yourself from obsessive compulsive behavior. Now, definitely compulsive behavior. I would definitely say that I suffer from OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Not so much, but compulsive disorder. And I think that there's some gems in that book that can go ahead and help with my presentation here that I'm giving. The other book is, the current book that I'm actually going through is James Clear's Atomic Habits book. And finally, Addicted to the Monkey Mind. And this is a book by J.F. Benoist. I don't know if it's Benoit or Benoist, but there's an S in there, so maybe Benoist. I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and get into that. Once again, the purpose of this episode is to go ahead and give some tips and just some lessons regarding changing habits. The first book I'm going to go into is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and the subheadline for that book being An Easy and Proven Way to Build Good Habits and Break Bad Ones. This one is the smallest little section that I'm going to be quoting today. The other books is a little bit more comprehensive, right? This is on page 79, and it's great with this book. He summarizes the chapter, so you can just cut out all the story bits, which is what a lot of authors use to kind of fill out a book, because if it just had the lessons, then it will be a very short book. But they put in a lot of stories, because stories are the way humans connect with each other. But I just love the fact that we just kind of get to the lesson. This is on page 79, and this is a chapter summary. I'm going to read the first 4 points of the chapter summary. The first one being, the first law of behavior change is make it obvious. Make the change obvious. Make the changing of the bad habit to the good habit obvious. The second point here is the two most common cues are time and location. This is super important. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. The third point, creating an implementation intention is a strategy you can use to pair a new habit with a specific time and location, which talks about that time and location thing I just finished mentioning. And the final point being the implementation intention formula is the behavior that you want to go ahead and start at this time and this particular location. Now, when it comes, just to dig into that whole thing regarding bad habits and time and location, because those being cues to want to act out with a bad habit. For me, when I go food shopping, if I see a particular food that I know is not great for me, but as soon as I see it, it's like a Pavlovian, like my mouth starts to water. I just get that urge and I just want to eat that food. I know it's not good for me, but I just want to buy that food. And that's happened recently. That happens a lot. There's this gluten-free pesto pizza, which I don't normally buy delivered pizza or anything like that. I don't eat pizza because I know, like I said, the cholesterol in the cheese is a lot. But this one particular pesto pizza, I love the flavor. It's super salty and it's freaking delicious. My mouth is watering just thinking about it now. But when I go into a supermarket or I go into a health food store, I know the section where it's located, and I a lot of times will just go and like stare at it for a while. This is my thinking. Like, I know if I buy this pizza, it's not going to be good for my heart, and I'm going to be worried about it after I finish eating it. And then the other side is saying, you deserve this. This is very like addict kind of talk almost. Like, I remember going to Sexaholics Anonymous and them kind of talking about this kind of thing, and just reading different sex addiction books. It's kind of, you're justifying like this bad behavior you're about to indulge in. Tell myself, oh yeah, you deserve this. I'm going to enjoy this and I'm not going to think about the consequences. It's been a tough week or whatever. And the sex addiction is all just coping with boredom, coping with loneliness. That's where basically a lot of addictions come from, like coping with pain, just like not wanting to think about it and just do the most pleasurable thing. And I'm like a pleasure monster. And I'm sure that's not exclusive to me. I just want to always go to the pleasure. What's the pleasure? What's the most pleasurable thing I can do to make myself feel good? I would even say in my own little itty-bitty studio apartment, there's a lot of little things of pleasure, which is not all bad. I'm not saying that seeking pleasure is all bad, but not deal with pain, to not deal with loneliness or boredom. I'll sometimes just go to this pleasure, right? Like sex when I'm not even horny, food when I'm not even hungry. It's just like, let me just pleasure myself right now. The time and location is very important. Like I said, I gave that one example when I'm in like two particular health food stores that I like to go to. When I'm in this particular area of the health food store, I know that's where that pesto pizza is, and I just kind of start to like, oh my goodness, like like making a good habit or making a backup plan when that thing happens is key. Another one, I've mentioned many times before, I'm not much for relationships in terms of like a man-woman relationship. I just kind of rather just pay for sex because I just feel it saves time and saves money as well, as opposed to dating. And I know when I go to Secaucus, I live in Union City, New Jersey. Secaucus is not far away from me. There's a bunch of hotels there that I've been to a bunch, like to see sex workers. So when I pass by there, those thoughts and those urges start to come up because of the feelings associated with the past of seeing sex workers in that particular area of Secaucus. Time and location, very important to make a plan when this particular place that is going to trigger you to want to act out in these bad behaviors. So I found that very interesting. That once again was in Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now going into the Brain Lock book. Once again, this book deals with OCD and how it's a chemical imbalance in the brain that makes one OCD. This was published some time ago, so maybe there is new science that contradicts some of that, what I just said. But I think that he makes a great point here in the sense of changing habits and behaviors. This is in the introduction, in the final page of the introduction. And as always, I love when books go ahead and just kind of summarize a chapter. It just saves time. And it's explaining obsessions and compulsions, right? Key points to remember. Obsessions are intrusive, unwanted thoughts and urges that don't go away. Compulsions, this is the key here. Compulsions are the repetitive behaviors that people perform in a vain attempt to rid themselves of the very uncomfortable feelings that obsessions cause. I would add, compulsions come about when people don't want to deal with their emotions of pain, loneliness, boredom, like in my case. Doing compulsions tend to make the obsessions worse, especially over the long run. And they do, because that's where addictions can come from. That's where bad behaviors can come from. You're just kind of repeatedly doing this bad behavior. And this is where the addiction grows. This is where the bad habit grows. So I found that very interesting. The method that this Brain Lock book uses to go ahead and change those behaviors, it's a 4-step process of relabeling is the first step, reattributing, second step, third step, refocus, and fourth step, revalue. I'm going to read to you those, like the summary in the very end of the book. This is on page 219. Once again, this deals with OCD, not 100% to what I ultimately am talking about here, but I just think that there's some gems to be picked up from here. Step 1 is relabel. It's recognize that the intrusive, obsessive thoughts and urges are the result of OCD. Step 2, reattribute. Realize that the intensity and intrusiveness of the thought or urge is caused by OCD. It is probably related to a biochemical imbalance in the brain. Step 3, refocus. Work around the OCD thoughts by focusing your attention on something else, at least for a few minutes. Do another behavior. And step 4, revalue. Do not take the OCD thought at face value. It is not significant in itself. And this is going to lead right into the next book that I'm going to be quoting here, which is Addicted to the Monkey Mind, where it breaks down the monkey mind and the observing mind. The monkey mind plays a lot to what I just finished reading in the other book regarding OCD, in the sense that the monkey mind is the mind that's always seeking pleasure. It doesn't care about us. It just wants pleasure. It just wants that dopamine high. It just wants to do the thing that is going to excite it the most. And that's what a lot of times it comes to food and sex and entertainment. Just like, what is the most pleasurable thing? And a lot of us are dominated by this monkey mind. The monkey mind, I've heard a comparison before, that it's like a little dog you let run around in the backyard. It just wants to go crazy. It just wants to go wild. It has no control. It's just running around in circles. And that's what the monkey mind is sort of like. This book, The Addicted to the Monkey Mind, the third book I'm going to be talking about now by J.F. Benoist, I think that's his name, defines the observing mind. And I'm going to read that to you now. So it's a little bit long, so just please bear with me. The observing mind does not look to other people or situations as the source of our troubles. Instead, it offers an objective perspective, uninhibited by our judgmental programming. This point of view understands that the source of our upset or delight is within ourselves. The observing mind is able to offer this wisdom by witnessing and learning from the monkey mind. Oftentimes, being aware of our shadows allows us to see the light we can offer to the world. Shifting into the observing mind's perspective is so powerful because our mindset affects everything we do. When we move away from the monkey mind's judgmental perspective, we open up ourselves up to abundance of opportunities and experiences. Relationships that once seemed doomed can begin to flourish. Endless cycles of addictive behavior can be resolved, and unattainable joy now becomes accessible. A life driven by passion and purpose is now within reach. When you address the root cause of your problems, your programming, everything will start to fall into place. That is in the introduction of the book. Now, when it talks about the programming, it talks about what we learned when we were kids, from our parents, from school, from TV, from movies, that life has to be a particular way, when reality is a lot different from what was being presented to us. And I was thinking about this recently, where I consume so much fictional content that it's tough sometimes to know this is reality and this is fiction, because I know a lot of times I've imitated comedy that I would see, or in my mind I would play out scenarios of how it would be like if I were to talk to like a woman that I was very attracted to, and it would play out like some rom-com, and it's completely opposite to what reality is. And I've suffered from this for years. It wasn't until therapy that really kind of crystallized for me that my life is so influenced by TV and movies and comics and just fantasy. Realizing this has helped me out so much when it comes to relationships with women. And this may definitely seem misogynistic. And a lot of relationships end in divorce. Dating women is very expensive, and kind of being at the beck and call of a woman just to kind of please her and make her happy, it's a lot of work, and it's what rom-coms kind of present to us. And I love rom-coms. I do. I get sentimental, and it gives me all the feels. But that's simply not reality. And it never talks about like the long term of like dating, or like having children, or like falling out of love, or just dealing with real life stuff. That's one aspect where fantasy has definitely overtaken my reality. Even when it comes to like relating to people and thinking that particular things are funny because I saw it in a movie and it made me laugh. And then when I kind of just do this, I imitate the same exact thing in the world, it's like what? It's kind of like people are looking at you sideways. You're just regurgitating what we've seen. And you know what? This is how we learn. We copy others. This is how we learn from birth, is by copying. But just like you start to think, like, when have I had original thought? When have I had an original feeling that wasn't motivated by something that I saw that I very much enjoyed? And I mean, like I said, we're a combination of all this stuff, because it's kind of like art is inspired by personal situations, and then we as consumers maybe are inspired by art to do something similar. I mention all this to basically talk about how I'm basically documenting how I want to go ahead and change my habits, and I've talked about it a lot over the years, and I want to continue to work on doing so, because I know that for me, slow growth is a thing where I'm not so good at something, but it's something that I'm interested in. So I'll just keep going at it, and I'll keep researching and looking at different videos and reading different things and reading different books about a particular subject, and just continue to apply and practice and get reps in. And then it just becomes easier and easier. In the past, like I would even say in the past like 3 to 4 years, I was like masturbating and watching porn, if not every other day, often. And now that's not the case because of all this information that I've learned and all of my documenting. So slowly making progress. It's the same with the food, where when I look at a calendar, some months are better than others, but my acting out with food, it's gotten a lot less than it used to be before. And it's because of what I'm learning and what I'm applying, and just always trying different techniques and things. Slow progress, for sure, and still working on changing these habits. Definitely. When it comes to the sex addiction, it's a double-edged sword, because I definitely want to stop watching porn, and I'm okay with just masturbating, and that's good. It's also a great thing about just masturbating. It's done quick. It's not like when I'm watching porn, it's like it could be like an hour or two thing. Sometimes just edging and looking for the right scene and just watching copious amounts of porn, as opposed to just masturbating. It's done 10, 15 minutes or less than all that, and then that's it. I'm ready to move on with my day. But then the double-edged sword comes, like, if I want to go see a sex worker, like, to go to the places to find the sex workers to see, there could be a lot of porn there. And my ritual after seeing a sex worker is like later on in the evening, I may still be horny. So at that point, I'll watch porn, and I will masturbate to it. So it's breaking these behaviors, breaking these patterns, and not always just going with what the monkey mind says, because I know that the monkey mind doesn't care about me. It just wants pleasure. And I'm still dominated by the monkey mind you. I'm not saying, no, and the monkey mind, it's not easy to break away from it, but just breaking those bad behaviors, those bad habits, is something that I want to keep working towards. I've had some wins in, and I want to continue to make the dominant behavior of, like I said, with sex addiction, just masturbating, no porn, with the eating of the saturated fats. That one's a little tougher, but I've grown the menu of items, and thanks for technology as well, because there's more and more products that are vegan and that don't have saturated fats, that taste great and one can enjoy. So building up that menu, I always have kind of a go-to to like replace if I want to have a cheese pizza, if I want to eat chocolate, if I want to have avocado or nuts, and like finding better alternatives for my health that are not so fatty. I'm going to leave affiliate links to these 3 books in the show notes for this episode if you wanted to check out any of these books. If you buy the books through those links, I will get a little kickback, and any and all support is definitely appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen the video version of this on YouTube, thanks for listening. If you're listening to this podcast form, and if you have any thoughts or comments, let me know on the blog, improveandhavefun.com. Always prefer to hear from you than more subscribers and more likes and this and that. I'd rather talk with you. I want to get to know you. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. My name is Paul, and I'll catch you on the next one.